Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. We have some big changes ahead in the weather pattern, but those changes will have to wait until we cross into 2024. So we'll be detailing the New Year's forecast in today's video, as well as your early to mid-January forecast later on in today's video. If you are new to the channel and are not subscribed, make sure you do subscribe to the channel, especially if you do like detailed weather breakdowns across North America and the tropics, and also to help me get to 75,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I do appreciate it. Also, be sure to press the like button down below. It helps out more than you know. So looking at your temperatures, going out the door this morning to work or school, and it's going to be chilly out there across the western third of the country. The Rockies in particular, temperatures are into the single digits. In the higher elevations, teens and the 20s across those lower elevations out there. And then further east, we're still dealing with a storm system that's bringing some milder Pacific air to the northeast, the mid-Atlantic, and the southeast coast this morning. Temperatures over there are into the 30s and the 40s. And the temperature anomalies this morning, more of an El Nino look that you do see here. You do see the warmer anomalies up there into southern portions of Canada and across the northern tier of the United States, with the cooler anomalies below average across the Gulf Coast from East Texas through Georgia and Florida, up to 15 degrees below normal for this time of year. And you can see as we go into the afternoon, here are your expected high temperatures across the country. You can see not too shabby to end the month there of December on the 29th, getting toward the last Friday of the month. Temperatures are going to be into the 30s to the north, 40s and 50s down to the south. Yeah, we're into the middle 50s in central Texas as we go into this afternoon. Not too shabby to say the least. We are still dealing with that storm system, very slow moving across the eastern side of the country. That will continue to bring us precip chances as we go through today. But notice to the west, we have a ridge building across Canada and the Intermountain West. In between, we're going to have a lot of dry air, so we're going to see temperatures warm up, but most importantly, we'll be seeing some dry weather. Notice another trough with lowering of the pressure with the blues here just off the west coast, and this is our next storm system that will be slamming into the west coast there into Oregon, Washington, and even portions of California as we go into tonight and especially for the weekend. So here are your current weather conditions. There's the remnants of our very slow moving storm system, bringing some wintry precip, at least a rain snow mix there across portions of Maine. All rain though across most of New England and the Northeast, and then some snow showers, some snow flurries on the backside of this storm system as the cold air is moving in just in time across the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley for some snow showers. And note the precip off the west coast, that is our next formidable storm system that will be moving into the west coast over the next 24 to 48 hours. Overall, though, this system did produce some decent rains across the country over the past 3 days, looking up here to the upper Midwest, through the Ohio Valley, and especially the East Coast here, down into the Carolinas, Western Carolinas in particular. This did produce over 4 inches worth of rain over the past 3 days. Also, some very heavy snow, some blizzard-like conditions across South Dakota, Nebraska, getting down into the Colorado Rockies, and a couple areas here into southwestern South Dakota actually achieved over 20 inches of accumulating snow with this system out there. So very impressive as it continues to move to the east. Now looking at the height anomalies, heading into your New Year's time frame and getting closer toward New Year's Eve, you do see that slow moving storm is on its way out across the East Coast and into the Western Atlantic Basin. That ridge in between that we're talking about with drier air, and then that storm system moving in across the West Coast, bringing unsettled weather, especially there for the Sacramento Valley in California as we go into this upcoming weekend. So taking it step by step here is today. You can see the back end moisture across portions of the eastern U.S. It's going to be spotty. Not everybody will see rain or snow, but definitely out there across the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, and the Mid-Atlantic states as we go through today. Notice the ridge across the middle of the country, drier weather, high pressure, sinking air, lots of warm temperatures out there for this time of year underneath of that high pressure ridge. And then there's that storm system moving into the West Coast, bringing all rain for the coastal California communities, Northern California today, but more so as we go into tonight. Notice Saturday, we have some snow up here with the cold air meeting up with some of the leftover moisture with this slow-moving storm from Maine all the way down to West Virginia there in the Appalachians. A little bit of snow can be expected, not a big snowstorm by any means. A few flurries up there across the upper Midwest. Very dry, though, across the Intermountain West, and then there's that storm system moving in across the west as we go across Washington State, Oregon, California. The Sierras will be seeing some decent snows going into Saturday, and then much of the same as we go into Sunday, New Year's Eve. A quick hitting system there for the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes region, could be bringing us more pesky showers and snow showers out there as we go into Sunday. Same thing can be said for the Pacific Northwest. Overall, though, between now and New Year's Eve night on the 31st of December, don't really expect too much precipitation with the remnants of our system moving across the east. Very dry in the middle of the country there in the Intermountain West, and then that storm system moving onto the West Coast this weekend could be producing some decent rains for coastal California and especially up into Northern California, the Sacramento Valley, as we go through Sunday night. Some of those rainfall totals could be up to over 2 inches there across those areas. Not much of a snow supply with this system. There could be some heavier snows for the Sierras in those higher elevations, possibly over 6 to 8 inches there. But other than that, we do have a weak system moving across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley we mentioned. That really won't be producing much snowfall either. A dusting, a half an inch at most, probably not that much snow. And looking at your high temperatures for Sunday, New Year's Eve, this is on December 31st. Not too shabby, folks. It's definitely been colder this time of year. You can see 20s and teens up here across the north, and then you can see the 40s, 50s, and 60s further to the south here. And then as we go into your Sunday night for New Year's Eve, any of those New Year's Eve festivities you have going on, the freezing line is going to be shifting further south into the southern plains, the deep south as we go into New Year's Eve night. And notice the snowpack up here. Earlier in the video, we did mention the 20 plus inches they did receive in South Dakota into parts of northwest Nebraska. You can see that here. There's the snow depth for New Year's Eve night, and you still see several inches of snowfall on the ground there, and that will be leading to some very cool temperatures and cold temperatures at that across South Dakota and northern portions of Nebraska. Temperatures there could be pushing the upper single digits in some of the coldest areas with that snowpack. And then as we go into Monday, New Year's Day on the 1st of January of 2024, much of the same. Cooler to the north, just 20s and 30s, and then 40s and 50s further down to the south. The warmest air will be in Florida and near the immediate Gulf Coast on New Year's Day. Now, we do have to talk about this. There's been a lot of chatter about polar vortex and a Siberian Express coming as we go deeper into the month of January. I wanted to clear this up with you because last video I did break down the weather pattern through late January to kind of give you an idea of the trends coming up with this. Now, there was a sudden stratospheric warming event that just did occur a few days ago, and the lobes of the polar vortex are going to start to weaken as we go into the middle of January. That is very high confidence at this point. Now, understanding the polar vortex and what it really truly means, when you have a stable vortex, a vortex is basically just a circle of cold air across the portions of the Arctic that kind of revolves around itself. And when it's stable, it's not going anywhere. It's bottled up to the north. The cold air is way up into Canada and into Siberia and the Arctics, and it doesn't have a chance to move down into the US or much of southern Canada. That's what we have been seeing across December with a stable polar vortex. Now, a disrupted polar vortex, much like we expect later in January due to that sudden stratospheric warming event, will send lobes of cold air at times further down into Canada and potentially at least across the northern United States as we get especially into the middle of the month. So going back to January of 2019, now this was a major sudden stratospheric warming event that happened a few weeks prior to this into late December and early January of that year. And look at some of these minimum temperatures. These aren't wind chills, folks. These are low temperatures into the 30s and 40s below zero here across the upper Midwest and the western Great Lakes region. Now, that doesn't mean that this will be as intense as that one, but we kind of look at the teleconnections and kind of put the puzzle pieces together on what we can expect. This is what we call the NAO, the North American Oscillation. Notice, right now it's trending around neutral at zero. But once we see that drop to negatives, that means our storm track will start to shift further south. And naturally, as our storm track shifts further south, that means the colder air will also shift further south, especially when looking at the AO. The Arctic oscillation is negative, and it will continue to remain negative through at least the first half of January, and possibly going even further negative as we go toward the second half of January. So putting it all together here, snow and ice cover from December 31st of 2019 into that 1st of January of 2020. Notice the snow cover in the white here, much further south that year, across the Dakotas, Nebraska there, the upper Midwest, and into the northern Ohio Valley. Translate that to this year, notice December 31st of 2023 into January 1st of 2024, you don't see the snow that far south like we did in 2019 and 2020. So that is going to play a crucial role in just how cold those temperatures get when that polar vortex shows up later into January, and that will be something to keep an eye on. So here is early January, the first week or so going through the 7th of the month. This is your 500 millibar height anomaly. The blues show the lowering of the pressure, usually colder temperatures and more active weather. The reds show the ridges and the warmer and drier weather usually here. And you can see we have an active weather pattern across the southern and central U.S. as we go into early January. And you can see what's also cooler to the south as well for much of northern Mexico, much of the southern U.S. near the Gulf Coast. But notice the ridge over the top, the blocking over the top here across southern Canada and the northern United States means warmer than normal temperatures for that first week into January. And the jet stream is much further south here and not really connected. So I'm not really expecting any major snowstorms or anything like that for the first week of January, just due to the fact that these jet streams, the polar jet to the north in Canada and the subtropical jet or Pacific jet, whatever you want to call it, further south, aren't phasing together. They're not coming together until they meet in eastern Canada, and by then the storm systems are well gone. So looking at this for the precipitation outlook, this goes through Sunday, January 7th here at 2024. Notice with that ridge and that blocking setting up over southern Canada, you can see that we have below normal precip chances across portions of the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and into interior New England. Now with that active polar jet moving into the Pacific Northwest, we could have some active weather, and then especially with that active subtropical and Pacific jet stream to the south across Southern California, the Four Corners region, into Texas, along the Gulf Coast, and then up through Florida and the Carolinas. That's where the above average precip chances will be for those first 7 days of January. And looking at that, this is the ensemble guidance. We look at ensemble guidance when we go beyond about 7 to 10 days out, and you do see the higher precip amounts will be down here into East Texas, near the Gulf Coast through Florida, and then up the East Coast there into the Carolinas and into coastal Virginia, and also very active across the West Coast as well with that polar jet coming in, and then it kind of diffuses itself and becomes less active as we go into the northern high plains for the first 7 days. Here's the snowfall potential during the first 7 days of January. Notice the snow line still way up to the north across Canada there. We have some Rocky Mountain snow out west. The Sierras will definitely be getting some decent snows for the first 7 days of January. Multiple storm systems moving in. Those higher elevations are colder this time of year. The snowfall will be piling up. Now we turn towards mid-January. I know we're getting beyond about 10 days out, but there has been a big consistent signal with a lot of the ensembles and the teleconnections that we just talked about with that polar vortex, that Siberian Express moving further south. And notice the source from this all the way up in Alaska. Alaska's seen a lot of snow this season. There's a lot of snowpack up in Alaska. So that's the source of some of the cold air, and that will be trickling south into the western Canadian provinces and eventually out west. And I think the western U.S., as it appears now, will be seeing the cold air first, and then that will be trending further east during the second half of January. So looking at the temperature anomalies for mid-month, the 14th, 15th, 16th time frame, give or take a day or so, colder anomalies out across western Canada and Alaska with the source of that cold air with that deep snowpack up there, and then that will trickle its way down into the western U.S., really along and west of the Rockies. Notice eastern Canada and the eastern U.S. above normal with our temperature still in mid-January. So that cold air, once it moves south, eventually it will be trending further east as we go later into the month. Now we have to look at the jet stream for the mid-month time frame. Again, 14th, 15th, 16th time frame. You see the jet stream becoming a little bit more organized, a lot more opportunities for that polar jet to the north and the subtropical Pacific jet stream to the south to phase together. They come together, and that means a bigger, more deeper system will be coming from the southern U.S. up to the north and east across either the eastern U.S. or across the central U.S. towards mid-January. And you can see that here. The trends are showing above average precip chances across the northeast, into the mid-Atlantic, and then off into the southeast coast during that mid-January time frame, and also across the Pacific Northwest as well. And we have some dry time at times in the middle of the country. So here is our total accumulated precip towards the middle of January. Notice the trends show where you see the greens, and the darker the greens you see, the more likelihood, more confidence there will be for precipitation there as we go into middle of January. And you can kind of see where that storm track sets up. Heavier rains further down here to the south and east, and that snow line will be trickling further south here into the upper Midwest initially, then into the Missouri Valley, the Ohio Valley, and then eventually into the Northeast. Will it make it to the I-95 corridor? We're not entirely sure right now. It really just depends on the depth of that cold air, and we will keep you updated each and every day on this channel to get this right for you guys as we do get closer. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel down below if you like detailed weather breakdowns on North America and the tropics. We will keep you covered with all that and much more on this channel. Help me get to 75,000 subscribers by the end of January. I do appreciate every one of you folks watching my video. Also, be sure to like the video down below. It helps to get all this valuable information to more and more people. And share this video with friends, family, and on social media. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their Friday out there.